You're watching Leafs Morning Take with host Nick Alberga and former NHLer Jay Rosehill. The show starts now.
It is time for another Friday edition of Leafs Morning Take presented by Bet365. It is Nick Alberga, excuse me, I can't even say my name right, and Carter Hutton. What's going on, Huts?
Yeah, that name can be a tricky one sometimes, buddy. At least you got it right, though. You stuck with it, and hopefully it goes smoother from that start there, my man.
Oh, that was a turbulent start for sure. And, I've been saying the issue, the condo is really, really dry, and my throat gets parched really, really easily. And when that happens, it's tough to enunciate. I don't know what it is. I got a big-ass humidifier in this condo. It's been really damn cold and dry in this condo lately.
Oh, I noticed it too. I honestly, living back at home now in T-Bay, I notice my skin smoked all the time. And you're like, even our kids and stuff, it's something just that the luxury of living in Canada, right? It's beautiful, but man, does it suck at times when these dog days. It's not just the dog days for hockey teams for the Leafs, it's the dog days for us too.
Dog days is of winter for sure, but I think the positive note, it really hasn't snowed much here in Toronto. Just been really, really cold the last couple weeks. But anyways, I opened an account with Bet365 today and bet on a huge range of markets, whatever the moment. It's never ordinary at Bet365. Use code NATION, all in uppercase today. That's NATION, N-A-T-I-O-N. Our Super Chat charity partner this season is Sick Kids. Want to make sure that your question or comment gets on the show. Hit us up with a Super Chat. Proceeds from our Super Chat will go to Sick Kids, ranked the #1 research-intensive children's hospital in Canada and third in the world. We're doing something extra special today for the Super Chat, as we talked about for the majority of the week. Producer Vic is getting married tomorrow. So if you want to use the Super Chat as a forum to give some words of wisdom to Producer Vic, by all means, hit us up with a Super Chat. Your thoughts on Producer Vic and maybe some words of courage and wisdom as he gets ready to get married on Saturday.
Yeah, exciting times, buddy. I've been there. I've done it. I'm still happily married. So good for you, Vic. Obviously, exciting times, my man. It's going to be a lot of fun. I like to hear, I'll enjoy hearing all the stories about it after. We're going to lose them for a little while. Big honeymoon after. So enjoy it, my man. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, this guy's going to Africa, and I'm on Team Vic here because I know the boys at Morning Cup of Hockey have been ragging on Vicky a bit for taking a 2-week vacation during the hockey season. Number one, nobody cares about the Four Nations. I'm sorry to say it and put it out there. Nobody cares about this tournament. It is not the Olympics. I think it's a perfect spot. Like Producer Vic and his fiance just did a masterful job of pinpointing this day, February 1st, to get married, then take 2 weeks. You're barely missing anything in the Leafs schedule, man. I think it's perfect. Well done, Vicky.
I know. I think it's smart. It's good timing. And again, like there's so little action and we're going to analyze it to death. Vic will survive, buddy. Enjoy it. You only get one shot at it. So I just had a couple of my good friends just went to Africa and they loved it. Safaris, they did it all. They traveled. They're over in Portugal now. He's a fireman. She's like, she doesn't work full time at the hospital. So their schedule is nuts. And everyone's always so jealous of them traveling and like, enjoy it, man. Have a good time. I'm jealous.
Life's too short. Tammy writes in, Nick, you need to get a humidifier. Tammy, that is the joke. I have a 5-liter humidifier, but this thing isn't powerful enough. And it's been a struggle the last couple weeks here in this winter. And that's why I'm actually headed down to Florida in the next couple weeks. I think Super Bowl weekend, I booked a couple days in Florida just to get away from this cold. I just need it. I need it, buddy.
Yeah, I just came back. It's nice. Honestly, I feel like coming back. We just got hit with a ton of snow here, which is actually awesome, right? Because we go skiing, we're out, and now I'm like, I feel like I'm rejuvenated to be back too. Like you get away, you get some sun, kind of gets you a kick in the butt, and being outside and stuff. Especially for my situation, you know, having a couple kids, I have a house, couple dogs. It's like when the weather's good, but we had a stretch there. It was like minus 25, is insane. So it's nice to get away. A little vitamin D. I abused the liver a little bit too much probably, but that's okay. We'll bounce back. So we're in a good spot now.
Dude, those resort trips are something special. But then I tell you, by like day 4 of a 7-day trip, I'm like, I'm getting up to drink at a bar again, like in the water. Like you think about it, you know, like, oh shit, we're doing this again. And you have to play mind games with yourself.
I know. I got squirrely. I'm the same thing. 4 days. And then I was with 7 good buddies too. Like there's 7 of us. So there was no letting off the gas, right? Like when you thought about bailing out and being a little bit of a baby and day 4 was hitting you, day 5, somebody was in the mood, right? There was always somebody pushing the pedal. So it was good. And for me, obviously it was nice to have all the kids together, but at the end of the day, 7 days is a long trip to hit it on the head like that.
So Auston Matthews, Huts, named captain of Team USA. What'd you think of that? Automatically, as somebody who covers the Leafs and is a Leafs fan, I'm like, oh no. I'm like, and it's inevitable. The U.S. chokes in this tournament, and who's going to get the strays? It's going to be the captain, who's also the captain of the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Yeah, I guess not surprising that he was named captain, right? You talk about
No.
a few guys that potentially were there, obviously Tkachuk is named an assistant and McAvoy. And I think for Auston Matthews, it's an honor, obviously something that's very exciting. I guess for me, just the worry of this whole situation is just the way his season has gone, dealing with injuries, being out, and now he's named captain. So much responsibility, so much weight on his shoulders, where at the end of the day, like, this is a formality, whatever happens at the Four Nations Cup. Like, really, no one cares. You made that point the other day, the Force Nations Cup. I love that. So I think it's one of those things where, like, his season's going to be judged by what he does with the Toronto Maple Leafs come playoff time, right? Now you worry about where some of these guys are getting rest, getting a little extra time to rejuvenate and get ready for playoffs and for a push. He's going to be slugging his guts out at the Four Nations Cup wearing the C on his chest for his country, which is great. But at the same time, after an injury-ridden season, it worries me.
Aside from getting that honor of wearing the C for your country, like there's 18 captains on that roster. Like what's any different than a Quinn Hughes who's not wearing a letter, or anybody for that matter on the roster is my question. Like I don't put as much stock as other people in the captaincy, specifically for Team USA. I think obviously it's an amazing honor. I think he was the right choice. But that was more sort of my wondering. It's like, let's say things don't go according to plan. Like I don't know if you agree with me. I think USA is the prohibitive favorite in that tournament just because of what they have in between the pipes. Never mind what they have on the back end. Their blue line is stacked, and then up front, like if things don't go according to plan for that team, granted it's the US, so it won't be as loud as Canada, but there's going to be some pushback, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. For sure. I think so, right? And again, I agree with you in an all-star team like this, right? There's so many guys, like you could throw the captain on anyone. All these guys are leaders on whatever team they play for. They've been leaders their whole life. They're all superstars. So I do like USA's chances here, right? You look at their goaltending, their depth. Yes, in a short tournament, I don't think I value it as much as I would over like a longer tournament where like the wear and tear. Like if you get a guy that's hot, Binnington can get hot, Aiden Hill can get hot. You look at like Swedish goaltending, if Allmark's healthy, Gustafson's been great. There's like the storylines go on and on, especially in a short little tournament like this. But I think for USA, I would say there's probably the most pressure to win, right? Outside of Canada, just the fact that they have the team on paper right now, you could argue is deeper and better than Team Canada. So I feel like it will be exciting. I love this stuff. Truthfully, I know a lot of people don't put a lot of stock into it, but I think it's fun to see, especially we've been removed from it for so long, right? And I think we grew up watching this, Nick, where you'd see international play, you see these guys on the big scale. So I think it will be fun, but at the end of the day, like whoever wins or loses, it's not going to mean as much as it does next year at the Olympics.
No, that's fair. And I think my excitement lies in the fact that, we haven't really seen Connor McDavid, Crosby, McKinnon, Makar under one roof playing together outside of an all-star weekend. And I think that's what will drive me ultimately to this tournament. We are hosting a watch party at Greta Bar YYZ on King Street West, February 15th, Canada and the US. I'm just more curious, and we've talked about this specifically earlier this week. Are guys going to get up for the occasion? And generally speaking, we both think they will. But it's more about the possibility of seeing these guys together for the first time. Like we were robbed of really damn good hockey for like a decade there. So any glimpse, any chance we get it, I will be tuned in.
Yeah, I agree. And I feel like misery loves company too, right? I feel like sometimes people start complaining about stuff and they grab onto it and they talk about it not mattering and whatever you think about the situation. These guys care, man. Like you're throwing over that Team Canada jersey, USA jersey, whatever country you're playing for, there's going to be value. There's going to be fire. And these are guys that bring it like majority of nights throughout an 82 game season, right? You can make the argument that these are the guys that move the needle in the NHL, right? They're all superstars. They all know how to bring it every night. So I don't think they're going to go into this with like that all-star game mentality. I know that's been thrown around a lot where people are like, is this going to be for real? Or guys going to try? And I think you're crazy to think that guys aren't going to try. In my personal opinion, and my experiences being around the NHL and around these superstars, I feel like there's so much pride and ego on the line in a sense too, where not alone just for your country, but just for yourself to prove a point that like Quinn Hughes, he's going to try to make a statement against Cale Makar, right? Who is the best defenseman in the world right now? These forwards going at it. They're going to try to make a stamp on their career. And again, we look back at the World Cup of hockey, like they're showing clips the other day with Mike Richter, what he did, right? These are things that like immortalize some of these guys back in the day, right? And I know it's a little bit different, this feel in this Four Nations Cup, but I feel like this is something we'll look back on for a lot of years after, it's all said and done.
What was it that he got Mike Richter, a Rolls Royce? Do you remember that? Like,
Wasn't it?
I
Wasn't
remember.
it a? Was no? It was a bike. Wasn't it a Harley or something? I think.
Yeah, Rolls Royce. Was it?
Yeah.
You sure?
I don't know. Rolls Royce seems crazy to me. Maybe we have to look that up. We gotta fact check that there.
I think like, and maybe again, I think I got to look this up on the spot, but I'm pretty sure Richter got a Rolls Royce. Maybe I'm incorrect, but I remember Don Cherry talking about it. But nevertheless, he got
He
something
was
pretty damn
insane.
cool.
He was
Yeah,
insane in that
yeah,
tournament too, and especially his style too. He was like that stand up. He was like kind of like this hybrid guy. Like so, you watch it now. I saw
yeah.
they showed a clip the other day of Stevie Y scoring on him, and it was like, oh my god, this looks so bad. Like today's standard for goaltending, but man, he was a gamer and he could play. That's for sure.
So good. Willie Nylander, by the way, named an alternate captain for Team Sweden. But it'll be interesting to see these guys come together, these Leaf-specific guys come together and play each other in this tournament. I know Zach Phillips was joking about Willie getting heat post-tournament for getting up for the occasion for this tournament. He loves playing for his country, man. There's that infamous clip at the World Championship a couple years ago where he finished the check of his life that we've never seen in Toronto. But just it brings the best out of these guys, I guess.
Oh, it does, right? It's different, like the pride, right? I find it cool right now, kind of seeing the goalie's gear come out, right? I guess, I'm a little bit of a nerd when it comes like that. Like I saw Aiden's Hill's gear the other day, and UC Saros had his Finnish gear on, like the white stuff. I actually liked him in it. He looked bigger. It looked like a good fit on him. I seen Allmark had his Swedish helmet on and pants, and so it's kind of cool to see that. And just, I think this is exciting times. I have a few buddies from here. They're going down actually to Montreal to watch that USA Canada game. So they're over the moon about that. I'm sure that place will be rocking when it comes to it.
Were you the type of guy who can get like new equipment and the next day wear it in a game? Like that's my wonder. And maybe that's why they're breaking it in a couple weeks before. But were you that type of guy who can just receive something and right into the game it goes?
No, not right away. I was pretty strategic, especially with gloves. Gloves were like my big, like, so chest protectors I would wear forever. Pants I would cycle in. Chest protectors I would last 2 seasons, 3 seasons because I hated new ones. But for pads, I could get into them pretty quickly, right? Especially once you're at the level where you're getting them all the time and they start to kind of lose size. Gloves were like my big thing, right? I would have 3 on the go at all times. I would have like a practice one that was kind of beat up and like a little more beefed up just to protect my hand. And then I'd have one that was my game one that I probably used in maybe a week of skating. So it was starting to get loose. What I always did is we have, like, you see guys wear the hot packs. You'll see that we have a hydroculator where you get a hot pack out of. What I would do is I would put it on the hydro, kind of, it would steam the glove and make it kind of softer. And then I would wear it that day and it would like mold to my hand better. And then I would probably use it 4 or 5 practices. Then that would be my game glove. And I would like protect that glove and I'd beat up my practice ones because the pocket starts to shrink. Like on the top of it, you can see the top of the glove. Once they get used too much, they start to like kind of collapse in and you lose space. So I was always strategic, trying to look for the biggest advantage. And, you know, some guys could wear stuff right out of the wrapper. I needed a little bit of time, but for the most part, that was kind of how I handled my gear.
It's funny, you guys in the National League had so much access to cool shit when your goalies. Like my brother actually is a goalie, and he had to send out his catching glove to like Nova Scotia or something like that. There's a guy who runs a business out there who's known for working in gloves. I guess my brother got a glove. It took a couple years, and then the big problem, my brother calls me. He's like, "Dude, they lost my glove in the mail," and it's like it's an expense. Like, I mean, you know, it's like high end goalie equipment. And anyways, they found it, and this guy was posted on like Instagram. My brother was so jacked because he's like flexing the glove, like he fixed it. But there's a guy who runs a business out east, like he just works in gloves.
I've actually seen that guy before too. He like redoes gloves. He does a bunch of stuff, and it's something I never did. You know what? It's kind of a cool segue here for me because they had a picture of Marc-Andre Fleury the other day with Lefebvre. He started with his gear. So I worked with his son a lot, Pat Lefebvre, and they went through a transition where I used to wear CCM my whole career. And then what happened was Lefebvre made CCM gear. CCM brought their contract over to China, which changed all the gear. So CCM brought me their gear from China, and it was brutal. Like the glove, I couldn't even open it. The pads were like 1.5 inches short. The quality control was horrible. And then Pat Lefebvre, they started building non-branded pads in the NHL. So you have to pay a fee to use the brand in the NHL. So me, actually, Marc-Andre Fleury, there was a few other guys. I had no name branded pads for a little bit when I was in Buffalo until True got CCM got Lefebvre because CCM didn't want to pay Lefebvre what he wanted. And then it came into True. So it's funny that Pat Lefebvre and, you know, his father there, Marc-Andre Fleury, they've been doing this stuff for so long. And the biggest thing I noticed with their gear was the consistency. I wore Vaughn for a little bit. I tried it when I was younger, and it's handmade, but it's like sometimes you'd get a glove. It's a little bit different. Whenever I had Lefebvre gear through CCM or through True, it was like so perfect. And for me, that was a difference maker right there. Like knowing that every time I got a glove, it was going to be the exact same, or pads, whatever it was. So it's kind of cool to see Fleury obviously repping that stuff last night.
Well, that's a perfect segue, man. I thought that was such a storybook way to end his time playing in Montreal, a team he dominated, by the way, in his entire career, to get a 19-save shutout. And it actually made me feel better about the game on Wednesday, where I thought Minnesota played an amazing game, and I didn't think the Leafs were that great, but they doubled it up and did it to Montreal. And Marc-Andre Fleury, again, like, just what a magical way to end things there.
Yeah, it was awesome. That's like, if you don't like that moment, I don't care what team you're cheering for. That's pretty cool to see. And the vintage, like, like the leg save in the third period there, the just coming flying off the, like, that's just like what Marc-Andre Fleury embodies as a goalie. He's just a competitor, and something that a guy that I looked up to in a sense, right? Like, he's a year older than me, but getting to play against him, he was such an athlete and competed so hard. So it was really cool to see. And the only problem I had last night was on starting goalies. I took the over 24.5 saves. So I I needed 5 more saves, and I couldn't get it. I did take the Wild as underdogs though, which seemed like kind of an easy bet last night.
Yeah, I bet on them too at plus money, but I tell you, I had the saves prop, and like, a period in, I was cooked, dude. They had like 6 shots on goal. I'm like, they're not getting there. No. They need like a 5-on-3. And then even when they had a power play, they weren't shooting the puck. It was that type of night. And again, I think the proper bet, it's tough to get to that level, but to bet on Marc-Andre Fleury to get a shutout, and what a storybook ending to his time in La Belle Province. Be sure to join us in Nashville Thursday, March 20th to Sunday, March 23rd for the first ever TLN Nation vacation. We're offering up 2 different packages, one with flights, $24.50 plus tax, one without, $12.99 plus tax. Hotel rooms are double occupancy. For more information on how to book, head on over to nationgear.ca or check out the link in our show bio. That is nationgear.ca. Life's too short for ordinary vacations. Hut's looking forward to today's guest, the one and only Gord Stellick, who you and I have both worked with. Of course, I was co-host with Gord on Leafs Nation coverage on Sportsnet 590 The Fan in Toronto doing Leafs broadcasts. Now you work with him over at NHL Network Radio. He's going to drop by in about 15 here.
Yeah, Gordo, he's great. I do an hour with him a day. He usually has Mike Johnson or Michael Rupp. I'm kind of like the third guy in the bullpen. I'm backup to the backup. So it's kind of cool, right, to get in that spot. And he's easy to work with, right? He's so knowledgeable, and he keeps it light. I feel like that's what I love about him, right? You don't know what you're going to get. I think they're so knowledgeable. Him and Scott Laughlin, I feel like I listen to them a lot in the morning. They come up with a lot of great stuff. So looking forward to having Gord on.
Legend at the Leafs Nation 401 on YouTube. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Leafs Morning Take, wherever you find your podcast. Make sure to leave us a 5-star review. And don't forget to visit theleafsnation.com. And don't be shy. Again, get those super chats in if you have words of wisdom for producer Vic, who is about to get married, embark on matrimony on Saturday. Please get those super chats in right now. So the Leafs headed out west. I guess some soul searching. I don't know what your read was on that Minnesota game, but no Kaprizov. You got to find a way to win that game if you're the Maple Leafs. But it's not going to be easy. It starts with McDavid and the Oilers on Saturday night.
Yeah, that's for sure. It's not going to get any easier here. This is kind of a man maker, this little trip here, right? I feel like you've had a good run, right? And now Ottawa's nipping at your heels. It's crazy we're saying that. Ottawa.
It's wild to me. Like, where did Ottawa come from, Hutz?
Oh, even last night too. I was like, I saw your tweet there about them collapsing, and then they just find a way to win that game, and they're getting it done. I think it's like just by committee, right? Especially without Linus Ullmark. I don't think they would stay afloat like this. And for this Leafs team, it's going to be a challenge, right? I think you're going to go into Edmonton. And you're telling me that Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, one of the best teams in hockey right now, they're going to be licking their chops ready for this matchup. It's going to be a national game. There's a lot on the table here for this team. So I think for them, they have to find a way to go. And for me, I guess I don't want to like stick to patterns, but I look at Joseph Woll, right? He goes 5 straight, then 2 losses, then 3 wins, then 2 losses. Like, is that his, like, is he going to find his game here? And not that he hasn't found his game. He's played well, but like, a timely save here or there can be the difference maker when your team's not scoring, right? And I think that's what they need to do to get out of this hump. And I think for them, there's going to be no challenge like this, because this is what they're going to deal with playoff time. You're going to lose a couple games in a row, and there's never going to be an easy matchup, and they have to find a way to get to their game. And I think this is going to be a great, I think identifier of what this team's mentality is here on this road trip.
Huts, I primarily defer to you when it comes to the crease, but there's no way I can pinpoint and blame Joseph Woll. Not blame, but you know what I mean? Like, get on
Yeah, for
Joseph
sure.
Woll. Like, this team can't score goals. They cannot score goals. They have 3 goals in the last 3 games. Now, we think Matthew Nyes and John Tavares will return to the lineup on Saturday. That's going to be a big boost right there, because I don't know about you. This team has looked depleted. They've looked tired. But those 2 guys specifically, you take them out of the lineup, and we're looking at Pontus Holmberg on the second line.
Yeah. And I think, you know, to go into that topic more, first off, Joseph Woll hasn't been worrisome for me. I think this run without Anthony Stolar should just instill confidence in everyone that he's been able to stay healthy and carry the load and be the guy, which has, you know, been the black cloud over him since he's been hurt a few times in very perfect moments, right? Start of the season, game 7 last year. And I think he still needs to get over that and have a healthy season. But you add John Tavares, you add Matthew Nyes back in the lineup. These are guys that fit Craig Berube's system too. These are guys that are going to grind. They're going to do the hard work. They're going to do the little things. And I think this should be a big shot in the arm for these guys. And I think it's going to be just managing the back end too, right? You know, with the way Morgan Rielly is playing, finding a fit where it's going to go. So for this Leafs team, I think it's going to be exciting to go in there. And I think it's going to be a challenge against this team. But again, a good measuring stick, especially when I would consider right now, the West is stronger than the East from what it seems like top to bottom. So this is going to be a good challenge. And I think it's exciting getting those players back. But at the same time, like, as guys stay back, we got to stay healthy here because it's been a rough year with injuries.
I don't know what's up, but even watching a lot of the action on Thursday, nobody can score goals. It's not just the Leafs. Like, if you bet on hockey, there are so many 5.5 numbers. It's wild. Like, if you recall when betting, you know, formally came into the league, a lot of 6.5s. We saw some 7s. Now you're lucky if you see like a 6 or a 6.5. It's always 5.5. So for as much as we make about the conversation in a vacuum here in Toronto, they can't score goals. I think this is a league-wide problem. And a big reason why, and it's not just the Leafs, like they're not calling penalties anymore as prolifically, in my opinion, as they were. I know people are up in arms about the officiating, but here we go again with the Leafs. They've got 2 power plays or less in 9 of their past 13 games. Like, I have no explanation how a team that talented cannot draw penalties. And quite frankly, this has been a story for like 5 years now, Huts.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's something that they need to. But the problem is when they do draw penalties, they can't find it in that. But at the same sense, though, you need those opportunities to get the power play going to be a game breaker, right? And I think that's something they need to keep working. And I don't know if it is like the gamesmanship of it or what they need to do. But I find just working in tougher areas to try to create chaos where maybe it's simplifying in the offensive zone, creating havoc, getting shots to the net where they can get rebounds and get guys out of position where they can maybe draw a bit more. But at the same time, man, this is going to be a tough challenge here out west.
It is. They got Edmonton, Calgary, Seattle, and Vancouver. So you can like sniff it. You can sniff Cancun. But as I said the other day, like, I think that the harsh part, if you're a fan of the Leafs or a player on the Leafs, is like your marquee talent is playing in this fabricated tournament. Like, these are your big guns, your big boys. And then, for example, you look at Vegas. I know Eichel's playing, but no William Karlsson. He's injured. No Petrangelo. Like, teams who don't have these guys playing probably benefit greatly. Like, the guys are resting for 2 weeks.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like if you're on management side of it or a fan base, you're like ecstatic about a guy missing, right? Potential for injury, potential wear and tear, and like how valuable it is to get away. I remember sometimes I would go away and, you know, you don't get a lot of days, right? But you're still getting 3-4 days away from the rink. And sometimes I would go on a bender. Like, you go away somewhere warm and you're like drinking more, you're eating more than you normally do. And I would come back and have like better runs later on, right? Because there is like a mental health to it. I don't know how you would say that or define it. I think everyone thinks
a goalie. Here we go.
Everyone thinks we're robots, Nikki, right? I feel like at times it's like people forget that we're humans, right? And there is another side to it. Yes. There is other things that goes on. And to get a little time to like decompress and get away from it is important. And yes, I don't want to sound like I'm on my soapbox here bitching about it. But in the same sense, like, you're paid to be a professional athlete. That's your job. You make a lot of money. You have to be good. And I'm the first one to be like, well, then you have to do it, right? But I also understand there is a little bit of like health and clarity you can get from getting away from the game, right? So I think that is important. And I also think for some of these teams that are in a good situation, like, oh no, Alex Petrangelo is not going to be playing. Like, yes, this is awesome, right? He's going to play a ton of minutes down the stretch for that Vegas team.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. It's sort of the reasoning why I'm getting away from this podcast for a couple of days and going down to Florida. I need just a bit of a reset here. But
Oh, yeah.
I do think we're a perfect fit because I hate goalies and you're a former goalie. So it's like it's hand in hand. I just don't think these guys are reliable. And reliability is big in my life. You just don't know who's going to show up for game 1 of the playoffs or game 7.
Yeah, buddy, I didn't trust my own game, so it's okay. I understand, man. I get why people hate goal. I send this message out to Buffalo. Everybody hates me there, but it is what it is, right? It's the cross you bear being a pro athlete, especially a goalie, right? There's no hiding from it.
Oh, I don't know. Again, I've ranted about this before. A guy gets a big fat ticket. He forgets how to stop a puck. Like, I don't know what's going. I know Corpusalo played last night for Boston, but I don't know what's going. Like, the Jeremy Swayman Leafs fans had to deal with in the Stanley Cup playoffs was King Kong. And now this guy can't stop a hockey puck. But I understand it's different times, different. I don't know. Like, it's just bizarre to me. I don't.
Yeah, it just shows
trust these
fragile.
guys.
Very fragile. I feel like when you're in a rhythm, it's easy. And then all of a sudden, when you're just a little bit off, it seems like the whole world's off. That just shows you how good the league is, too.
Yeah. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button at the Leafs Nation 401. Again, momentarily, we're going to be joined by former Leafs GM Gord Stellick, a longtime broadcaster as well. I know somebody in the chat asked here, Leaf Nation 67, who do you think replaces Petro? I think it's going to be Drew Doughty.
Yeah, I think that would be a fit. I haven't really watched closely in his return how he's looked. I think there is a little bit of just that experience too to go with it, right? Especially on a back end that has some guys that haven't been in international play, and Drew Doughty is just a freak too, right? He is a guy
Animal.
that doesn't need to train. He's just like honestly, he's on another level. So I could see that in the experience, and depending on how it goes in this short little span before the Four Nations Cup, he could be your guy. If not, then you start to look at some guys that have had big years. I know Mackenzie Weegar's name's been thrown around. There's been a few different players in that fit. I think it's more what style of defenseman is going to fit best, for that lineup.
By the way, Doughty played a back-to-back in his return. So in Florida the other night, I think he played over 23. He played 27-43 yesterday against the Tampa Bay Lightning.
He's a freak, man. He's so funny.
Yeah. He's the Phil Kessel defenseman. Like a lot of people gave Phil Kessel grief for his body. I know a couple guys who trained him throughout his career. They're like, this guy's a freak athlete. He is he's so good at everything he does. And it sounds like Drew Doughty's the same way.
Yeah, they are, right? And I know they've never been they always have a little bit of the milk bag body. And I've played with a few guys like that where they don't have there's not a lot of hockey players you see that are like the ripped cut guys from the magazine. It just doesn't translate, right? Any guys I've seen like that are like fourth liners that play minimal minutes that just hum, where some guys I've played with, they don't have, like Roman Josi, man. He was a little chubby guy, could skate for days, never get tired. And I've played against Drew Doughty a ton. I remember a few times him chirping me on the bench during a shift and then getting the puck, telling me on a draw that he was going to score and he'll get a point or something and come by, and he's on another level. It's wild what some of these guys can do. They're just natural athletes.
And I think Hockey Canada telegraphed the move a bit because it sounded like John Cooper and Drew Doughty met. Like, what are you meeting about? It's probably like, hey, how's your conditioning? How are you feeling? Like, it's got to be Drew Doughty to me. As much as I want Chris Tanev to get his praise, I don't want him to play in this tournament. I want him ready for the stretch drive.
No, not the minutes that he plays, right? Doughty can play a different style of game than Tanev. Tanev plays a lot of hard minutes, and the Leafs are really going to rely upon him when it comes down to crunch time.
All right, the following interview is brought to you by Charm Diamond Centers. Get custom ring building delivered in less than 4 weeks with the Charm Masterpiece Program and an unbeatable pricing policy. Charm Diamond Centers is proudly Canadian-owned and operated since 1972 with more than 85 locations across the country through Charm and their sister brands. For more information, go to charmdiamondcenters.com. Today's guest needs minimal introduction. It is Gord Stellick. El Gordo, what's going on, buddy? How are you?
Good to catch up with you and you, Carter, as well. All is good. A big weekend of hockey, the Four Nations face-off. And February starts. We get out of the cold, sunlight-deprived January. So all's good in Gordo world.
Is it me or has, January felt like 72 days long? But I'm with you on that front. Looking set and looking forward to the Four Nations, Gordo. Who do you think replaces Petrangelo? Like, I know Tanev deserves a shout here, but it's going to be Doughty, right?
Well, you're leading the witness, sir.
I am.
Yes, I do agree with you. And so, the one philosophy is that if you were looking at a comparable to take Petrangelo's role, that probably Tanev is a better comparable. But the thing about Drew Doughty is he's excelled at this competition. Like he's got a swagger, he's got a confidence. And I think back in 2014, Nick and Carter, that they won a gold medal. It wasn't as exciting as winning in Vancouver in 2010. And it was kind of a boring style that Mike Babcock had them playing, except for Drew Doughty. He said, screw it, I'm going to play the Drew Doughty way. So it was like kind of a pedestrian gold medal, except for Drew Doughty. So I know it's like 10 years or 11 years later, but he played 27 minutes last night. So that would be my first pick.
Yeah, I think you're not wrong there, especially the way that he can just carry minutes. He can play every role, Gordo. Another topic we were just chatting about, what do you think of Auston Matthews being named as the captain? You think that adds pressure, or do you think this is just a formality? They're all kind of leaders in that room.
Well, and it's, funny, talking to Brian Burke, just getting a read about what the captain and alternates mean, because, it's a different environment. It's a shortened part of the season, or whatever you want to call it. These are all leaders. It's not young kids coming, golly gee darn, I'm in the NHL. And he mentioned, like, on his silver medal team back in 2010, that Jamie Langenbrunner was an outstanding captain. But, you have a leadership group, and all of these 4 countries are going to have outstanding leadership groups that I don't know how much they get, leaned on or not. But 3 of the captains were automatic. Team USA was kind of up there. Now, Matthew Tkachuk is not a captain of his NHL team, so I don't know if that factored in, even though Austin's just a new captain in Toronto. But it really, like, I think Toronto has the 3 guys that it's whether it's Marner, Canada, Nylander, Sweden, Auston Matthews, Team USA, that, to do something in a playoff type environment that hopefully bodes well for the playoffs for the Maple Leafs, to be the, the kick-ass stars of the series. And in Austin's case, that would be, on the ice, as well as being the captain. I don't know how much of it's ceremonial or not, but they're kind of saying you're the guy, just like the Leafs want to go in the playoffs, that you have a supporting cast, but you're the guy, and let's go deeper in the playoffs. So you got to think one of those 3 countries, sorry, Finland, but one of those 3 countries is going to win this. And how much of a positive is it going to be for whichever Leaf player is on that team?
How dare you bury Yanni Hakanpää like that, Gordo?
Sorry, Yanni.
I want to ask you about Mitch Marner. Do you think it's a sneaky big tournament for Mitch Marner, knowing what's ahead with the playoffs, the contract, and all that?
Boy, I don't know about sneaky big, because there's no mystery about it, right? So even if he had say a subpar tournament, I don't know, whatever, ordinary tournament, it's like Rantanen, it's like Leon Draisaitl. They entered the season as the top 3 unrestricted free agents. Draisaitl got settled, of course, and it's just going to be interesting regardless what happens. I mean, he's going to go for top dollar. He always has. The Leafs know that. Other teams know it. I just think, like the other 2, all 3 of them could really shine, and just one of them wins the gold medal. But I just think it's an opportunity of playing best on best in a deeper playoff format to excel and stand out. Same as Nylander, same as Matthews. I don't think the contract, and I know you didn't ask that, but I don't think that will factor in any way, shape, or form.
Now, Gordo, we work together, right? Sirius NHL Network Radio, and I'm an avid listener, and you're the plus minus police, right? I'm always listening. I'm always paying attention. What do you take of Morgan Rielly? What's going on with him and the problems they're having so far this year? What's he at? Minus 17 right now, I think, and other guys are at plus 16 D's pairing. So what do you take of his problems so far this year?
And Carter, the plus minus has sort of been despite the incredible vigilance of my El Gordo plus minus police officers, it's been kind of a diminishing stat in importance, because there's so many other stats out there. But that's where it does come into play. And of course, Morgan Rielly's probably on for a ton of empty net goals against, right? Which factors, but so are a bunch of other guys. So when you have that kind of gap, that's when it catches your eye. And we've seen it, Carter, with goaltenders, whether it's Tristan Jarry or Philip Grubauer, not being able to do it at a level they once did. And I find that maybe a little bit more understandable than the mystery of Morgan Rielly. Like, he's never the Norris Trophy guy, but he's kind of been your longtime stud in Toronto without being at a Norris Trophy level. But generally, though, there's a consistency year after year that the highs aren't that extreme and the lows aren't kind of as ordinary as it's been this year. So I'm glad that, Craig Berube addressed it. I'm glad that he addressed it. And we've seen, and everyone talks about, well, who can he play with? And I know that's ideal if, say, like Luke Schenn was a couple of years ago when he came over, that they paired really well. But also, if you're the best defenseman, you should be the guy that you're looking to put other people to play with, so they can get their game going. So yeah, it's if he doesn't get going, And I just got, I know he doesn't have a great shot, but you just got to shoot more is what I find. I think he's got to passing up too many opportunities on the offensive side. I still think the hugest positive is the big picture that you add Chris Tanev and Oliver Ekman-Larsson. Like, wow, you added 2 to your core 4 in the summer, and that's pretty significant.
Much improved in the blue line, but I think we sort of expected this too, that it was going to be more of a harder sort of chore to score goals. And that's been a story as of late, 3 goals in the last 3 games. How concerned about the offense are you, or just more about the injuries piling up?
I'm concerned about neither. Their realities, right? Like, I mean, we all, like Nick, you and I have been fortunate to cover the game. Carter plays it. It's a grind. And this is when it becomes the dog days in a lot of ways. So over 82 games, I expect these kind of blips. Actually, the 2 most perfect seasons that I can remember, like in the last 10 years, were Boston a couple of years ago and Tampa Bay, whatever it was, and they both got eliminated in the first round. So,
True.
Go figure. So I just don't like the peaks and valleys. You don't want the valleys to be too long, would one thing. And again, the scoring, the only thing will concern me. I don't know how it relates to scoring or not scoring in the playoffs, but that's what's eluded them the last couple of years. The premise has always been, no, they can score, can't do the other things, but actually the scoring dried up. Injuries, man, they were killing it when they had a ton of forwards injured. Now, except for Auston Matthews, the right forwards were still in the lineup, the best players. And last year they had a whack of D gone. They played pretty well. I mean, the best teams withstand injuries, and they're supposed to be one of the best teams. So I'm not worried.
Yeah, it is definitely a battle of attrition, especially come playoff time in these dog days. And I get that full force. And I feel like that is the black cloud over this team. It's like, what are they going to do in the playoffs? Like the regular season seems just like a formality at this point. But what do you think of Craig Berube so far? What he's done with this team? Obviously, you guys got a chance to work with him a lot, NHL radio, and the fact of, what makes this team different? What makes us as fans and people of the Leafs to believe that this year could be different?
Well, Carter, it's funny, and I think in a lot of ways we're believing stuff that we're stretching to believe, because they're Toronto, I think, is the only unique case of the 32 teams that is a team that's, relatively speaking, home and cooled out to make the playoffs, much like it's been the last 5-6 years. And every year, even though they won a series once, it's the way they went out in the second round. So every year has lacked playoff success. I know can be some similarities in Carolina, maybe a bit, but they went deeper. Winnipeg, they did go deeper in an instance. So I think it's rather unique here. So the coaching, and a lot of it is put on what Craig Berube did in 2019 when St. Louis won a Stanley Cup, and it should be. But they only won 1 playoff round after that, so they were almost like the Maple Leafs. So they were a Stanley Cup team that then ended up being a team that didn't have playoff success after they won that Stanley Cup. So. But I think he deserves the cachet of what he did in 2019. It seems like they're more defensively responsible. Is this a style that's going to bode better in the playoffs? We hope and believe it does. But I think the 2 biggest parts, it'll come down to the depth, because we need the Nick Paul or someone scoring that big goal, or years ago, Gary Volk scoring that goal in 1999 or whatever it was. Like, they've lacked anyone doing it. They've lacked the big guns doing it. But so hopefully more depth. And man, if that goaltending can be like it was at just before Christmas or anywhere close, that'll be huge, because they've basically always been out goaltended, even though sometimes they've had good goaltending, but by narrow margins. So to me, those are the bigger things than the coaching. I will say, a guy my age, I don't know, but I think back to the Roger Nielsen era, where no question, he made you a better team. But when you lost, it just seemed more boring. And I don't know. I think Leaf fans are saying that, but losing sucks anyway. But you're seeming to think that, okay, not only did we lose, but it was boring. So I don't know if that's fact or fiction, but that's what I found this year.
Yeah, people don't know what they want. A year ago, they're like, this is not going to work with Sheldon Keefe, the 7-6 hockey. Now the 2-1 hockey is not working with Craig Berube. People just don't know what they want. I agree with you on the bottom 6 like that. I have concern with the bottom 6. So naturally, I ask you, do you think Brandon Saad could be a good fit?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's such a strange thing that his last couple of years directly tied to Craig Berube being the head coach of St. Louis, and not so much when Craig Berube was gone. And man, I give the guy that, having onions to say, look, I could sit back, go to the AHL this year, get bought out, and then, try my luck July 1st, but saying I'm going to give up Do-Re-Mi because I believe I can contribute and play now, and probably play at 775 prorated. So yeah, so Nick, to answer your question, that's exactly a kind of guy that I think would be an ad, and obviously at a good price for the Maple Leafs. I know there's rumors about Edmonton and other places. He obviously wants to go to a place to play in the playoffs. Okay. And I think Toronto could be a great fit.
Yeah, it would be a great fit, right? I got a chance to play with Brandon when I was in Rockford, where he was in the minors, and in Chicago. And he's a specimen. He's a guy that wants to win. And, you know, obviously bouncing around, you've been around the game for a long time. You know, what are some of your memories of just being with the Leafs and being in the front office? You know, something that you know, take away as you reflect on your career with the Leafs?
Hey, first one, did you play with any of the Secure brothers?
No.
Okay, miss. Anyway, I know their dad. That's all small world thing. But anyway, think of Rockford and Chicago. You know, I got to tell you, and like, you know, my dad was Ernie the TV repairman. My dad wasn't even a hockey fan. So it was a weird confluence of events that I was fortunate. The public relations director, Stan Abodiak, lived in my neighborhood. And anyway, it kind of went from there. I got to Carter when I started working full time. I got to drive and pull up my car. I got Punch Imlach's parking spot after he got fired. He was very good to me, but I got his parking spot right beside the building. So that was so cool that you parked your car at Maple Leaf Gardens and you went in and it was Maple Leaf Gardens. And everybody around there, you know, the day after a game, like there weren't cell phones and social media. So it was actual conversation, you know, and so just the buzz was always amazing. And just the majesty, the brilliance of the games, the 40 games at a time, the home games, and then the building, you know, it was an all events game, but it was a hockey shrine. And unfortunately, Scotiabank Arena is not a hockey shrine. I don't know if you can get a hockey shrine anymore, but I worked hard. I did a lot of things. I worked my ass off there. I took advantage of the opportunity, but I found myself having to pinch myself so many times. And one thing I got really lucky about, and this is where, you know, a guy like Nick being younger, although I would take your youth, Nick, in a swap in that particular thing. But that era, because there were not emails and phones and that, there were discussions. So when you sat like this with media, with players, with general managers, with whatever, like you had invested conversations. And I'm the 20-something guy, like hanging on everything, right? Nobody's looking at their phone. No one's saying, I got to go, whatever. You know, when I was in general managers meetings, you rushed to grab a payphone during a break and, you know, and phone back to get your messages and stuff. In my case, probably to talk to an owner who wasn't happy about certain things. But anyway, that's the way it went. So that's what was neat, that it was this hockey buzz all the time, which is now being recreated on shows like this and what have you. So it was just a really, really fortunate run. It was a very small front office. Harold Ballard lived there. Like he lived there. He's an owner in his 80s. And there'd be a buzz, like all of a sudden, go, oh, Mr. Ballard's back, you know, whatever. So you never knew he was in the building or not. And he could come out at 9 p.m. at night in his boxer shorts or whatever. But it worked to my favor because I worked there long hours. And he knew that because he was there, that I got to spend time. And I wasn't sucking up, you know, but I grew on him, and that gave me the opportunity. So I am the luckiest guy in the world to have that kind of opportunity. I'm lucky to be doing this with you and on the media side and everything else. But I just sometimes think, like you can kind of see in my room here, a lot of it is about, you know, press clippings going back to that particular time and that. So I'm very fortunate. It was magical. I really treasure it.
What was Harold Ballard like behind closed doors?
So Nick and Carter, if you met Mr. Ballard, your first thing will go, what a nice guy. Like you'd be baffled that nowadays the whole thing is guys can be bleep holes, you know, behind the scenes, tyrants running an office, but publicly want a good perception. So he was from the era that he kept scrapbooks like here, that, you know, he was a guy in his late 60s that the guy, through a weird confluence of events, Stafford Smythe passing away at a young age, he got Maple Leaf Gardens and the Toronto Maple Leafs. So he was loving it. So he got his name in the paper and he got his name on TV, and he, you know, so he would say outrageous things, you know, because it would get you the headline. So he loved it, you know, but it wasn't good, you know, all in all. People didn't like being, you know, beat up in the media, even though behind the scenes he said, don't worry about it, whatever. Well, no, it's not that simple. So he taught me always think on your feet, because you expect the unexpected. And in being the boss, when he was at home, he sat in that bunker. So he would call about weird stuff. you never knew what. Like, what's the organist playing? And you go, I'm not happy about it. I go, well, we're down 6-0. I'm not happy about that, right? I really don't know what the organist is playing. And then on the road, he was a different guy. He was like your favorite uncle. And it was a very personal thing. But at the Gardens, everything. Who's there in the press box? What's going on there? He owned the building and he flaunted that. So it was an interesting psychology and sociology experiment or experience for me as well.
Damn it, Gord. I wish she was in the building for that game you and I had to work when the Zamboni driver played for the Carolina Hurricanes and beat the Toronto Maple Leafs. But we'll leave that for another day. It's always great catching up. I want to leave you with this. So Vic Paladian, as you know, from Sportsnet, back in the day, now working for the Nation Network as their technical op. He's getting married tomorrow. Any words of wisdom for him?
Oh boy, this is going to be, it sounds sexist, first of all, but this could be a tough day for single women in Canada and wherever. Vic is one sharp dude. And I think it was, we were out once after a trade deadline, July 1st, and some particular mystery person thought he looked like Drake, right? And so anyway, yes, I'm not going to give him any smart ass advice. It's just enjoy, and it's going to be work, and it's going to be wonderful. And I'm sure he's a lucky guy, but whoever his partner is going to be, is a very lucky individual as well. So wish Vic my best. And
Gord, the cherry on top to this story, guess where they met? Guess. One wild guess. What am I synonymous for?
They met at what's the bar? What's
Two
it called?
Cats, baby.
Two Cats, the bar.
I was there that night. Vic met his fiance. Isn't that wild?
Well, if he was beside you, he would look a whole lot better. So talking to two, she probably said to her friend, "You can hang with this Nick guy." So anyway, Two Cats. Okay, another stroke of PR for Two Cats.
That is a Two Cats love story. Gord, you're the best, the most professional broadcaster I've ever worked with. Thank you so much for your time today.
Okay, see you, Nick. See you, Carter.
See you, Gord.
He's the best. Gord Stellick from NHL Network Radio. Just I love my time working with Gordo. Just watching Leafs games with him was just so much fun. Like, we talk about, big Leafs fans. Producer Vic is on that list. El Gordo's on that list as well.
Yeah, he's been great. I had a chance now to do an hour with him, occasionally when Mike Johnson or Michael Rupp can. He spoon feeds me, right? I'm new to the game, so I find I feel like when I get on with an hour with him, it's so easy. And obviously great to have him on. And he's been around the game for so long, so many crazy stories. The Harold Ballard stuff is great.
Oh.
And just obviously what a career.
Huts, are you ready for this week's edition of Take It or Leaf It?
I don't know if I am, but we're going to do it, eh? Let's do it, buddy. We'll find out.
We have to
shortly.
Do it. You are contractually obligated to play Take It or Leaf It if it's happening on a Friday. But again, everybody by now knows the gimmick, knows the rules. Take It's yes, Leaf It is no. Number one. The Leafs will make more than 2 trades between now and the March 7th trade deadline. Take it or leaf it, Huts.
Oh, man. I'm going to go leaf it. I just don't know if they're going to be able to swing 2 of them. I definitely see a trade happening. I guess maybe just the injury bug is my only worry, right? There's been so many guys until they really get a big picture of what they got. I definitely see them making 1 trade, but I don't know about making 2, Nick.
I'm going to go with take it. Minor deal is always part of the equation. I think they're going to look to address a couple things. I think in a perfect world, you want to add a forward, you want to add a defenseman, even if it's a 7-8 guy. And I think there's a minor deal sprinkled in there, money in, money out type deal. So I'm going to go with take it. I love that we disagree in opinion there. Number 2, of the Leafs headed to the Four Nations, Auston Matthews will record the most points. Take it or leaf it.
Ooh, the most points for Auston Matthews. I'm going to leaf it. I don't think he's going to have the most points. I think Marner's going to have a tournament, or Nylander. They step up. I just think they're, I do think if it was scoring goals, I would take him, but I don't think he's going to have the most points.
Who would get more goals, Nylander or Matthews in this tourney? I think it's a fair question.
It is a fair question. And I want to say maybe Nylander, just because the role that he's going to be in, because there's so much more depth with Team USA, and Nylander's going to be kind of more in the spotlight, being the guy as one of the biggest goal scorers for Sweden.
Leaf it. This is my hot take. Willie Nylander has the most points of any Leaf, even including Yanni Hakanpää in this tournament. So you heard it here first.
Hakanpää's going. Gordo just threw him under the bus.
Yeah, well, he understands how ridiculous it is that this guy has played 2 games in like almost a year. He hasn't played a Leaf game in like 2 months. and he's still on that roster. And last time I checked, Miro Heiskanen's cooked. He's
I
not
know
playing in that tourney.
how toast is Finland now, right? Like that's literally
done.
like your guy.
Yeah.
Like that, like when he got hurt, it's like, okay, Finland, you're toast. Don't even come.
Unless he's there and he's going to be a health bomb. I don't know. It is bizarre, but anything's possible. It's just weird to me that you're going to play in a best on best tournament. He couldn't even hack it at the National League level. So
I know, yeah.
He looked really slow, man. Like I know Rosie was really excited in the offseason when they brought in Yanni Hakanpää. He's a big presence. He kills penalties, but man, he looked like he never really caught up to speed. He played 2 games. He got a healthy scratch a couple times in between those games for Benoit, and then just he had the procedure on the knee, and next thing you know, it's been 2 months and there's 4 games left and they're playing Edmonton on Saturday. Like he's not getting in that game. Maybe it's a Calgary, maybe it's Seattle. It's just a bizarre situation. Nevertheless, final one. Producer Vic will shed at least 1 tear during his wedding speech. Take it or leave it.
Take it, baby, all day, man. For coming from a guy who's married, man, for sure. It gets emotional, man. It's hard, right? You're getting married, you love your wife, and it's this big moment surrounded by friends and family. I'm getting emotional talking about it, baby. He's gonna shed some tears. Sorry, Vic. I know you good looking boy, looking like Drake over there, 2 cats, but I think he's gonna shed some tears.
It's still, I mean, the story of Vic meeting his fiance is just so surreal to me that like me and Vicky just like, we're like, hey, let's meet up one night. And I'm like, everybody knows I love 2 cats. And we went to 2 cats. And like, to think that's where you meet the love of your life. Like, not to say you could have met her at any other bar, but like circumstantially, right place, right time. Hey, you meet. And then next thing you know, the best part of the story I never shared. We went out for, I think it was Chinese food after they met that night. It was like me, Vic, his buddy, and I believe her and her friend, and Vicky picked up the entire bill at this Chinese place. I'm like, this is love. I knew it right there. I think it's so cool how you like create a love story that way,
Yeah, it's cool. It's an awesome story, and you never know when it's going to happen. I kind of have a story like that. We went away to Cancun. This is years ago when I was playing.
Of course you did.
We're all single. We're all single. One of my buddies. One of my buddies, no, these are the NHL guys, just my local buddies. And this guy, he met a girl in the pool and they like kept in touch. And now he's married to her. He lives in California. They have a kid. Like, it's cool how it happens, right? And I'm like, what if we didn't go on that trip to Cancun? Like, your whole life is different. What if you don't go to 2 cats at night, Vicky? Who knows what you're doing?
Hey, I'm still waiting for that story, boys. One day. Tammy, thank you so much for the super chat in support of Vic and Sick Kids, by the way. Marriage is like hockey because both require teamwork, giving each other assists to score in life. Wow, Tammy.
That's deep.
Cherish her through the good and bad because she's your Stanley Cup. Congrats, Vic. Holy Moses, Tammy. That's. Tammy with words of wisdom of the year right there. Tammy, just please send some my way next time. That was awesome.
Yeah. That was really good. That was deep. I love it. This is awesome. Well, exciting weekend for Vic. Exciting game coming up here. We got a good weekend ahead of us, my man.
It's time for the last call, brought to you by Bet365. Open an account with Bet365 today and bet in a huge range of markets. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Use code NATION, all in uppercase today. That's NATION, NATION. Any bets you like either for today or for the Leafs game on Saturday? I'm going to hit a Bobby McMann anytime goal. I believe he is from Alberta, my man.
Ooh, I like that. I actually don't mind the under in that game. You know what I mean? I just think the way that Woll's playing, the way that Skinner's playing, it's going to be a good matchup. And I think you're probably going to get that line at 6.5 just with these 2 teams and the lack of scoring that's been going on. The other one that I like tonight, I'm not really sure. I just think Dallas is going to give it to the Canucks here tonight. I just think the Canucks are in turmoil and Dallas wants to start winning some hockey games with Minnesota continually winning.
What's your view on that, by the way? I think it is so ridiculous that 2 professional athletes cannot get on the same page, and they're going to have to trade both these guys, it sounds like. It sounds like Jim Rutherford's had enough, and he's like, both of you out the door. Like, I think this is so ridiculous, but it's so Vancouver.
I know it's so Vancouver. It's so new age too. Like, just put it like it is what it is, man. You guys
fight it out. Go to the back of the arena and fight. Just fight.
100%. We had this conversation the other day with a friend of mine. Like, you're 2 grown men. Like, get over it. This is like hens doing it. And I guess it gets frustrating. And I've had guys I've played with that I didn't see eye to eye with. One for me with Rasmus Ristolainen when I was in Buffalo. But we would have it out. Like, we'd hit it on the head. The next day we'd come to work with buddies. Like, it's part of the process. Like, it's a competitive game. And the thing for me is, like, you've played hockey your whole life. This isn't your first time you've played with a guy you don't get along with. So I feel like it's pretty exhausting, especially for guys that are supposed to be your stars and leaders on your team.
Do you think it'll ever come out what happened? Like, we all know what we're thinking. There's only a couple different scenarios that would lead somebody down a pathway where you hate a person that much. Like, imagine it's like the pettiest shit ever, where it's like, oh, he used one of my sticks in practice and broke it. Like, hopefully it's a big reason. Okay.
Yeah. Like, I don't know what, like, I would hope it's a big reason. Like, he slept with his wife or his girlfriend or something like crazy, which there's no repairing, right? Where I guess it just doesn't seem like either of those guys have that in their DNA. I know JT Miller's a family man. He has all that.
Yeah.
Elias Pettersson, he seems like he doesn't seem like he would say boo. You know what I mean? He seems like a pretty quiet guy, laid back. So it's an interesting topic. I don't know if the truth will ever come out, but at the end of the day, it's pretty embarrassing to see where they were at last year to see where they're at now.
Well, it's funny, like when this story came out a couple months ago, I sided firmly with JT Miller. I'm like, I love this guy. I love the way he plays in the playoffs. And like, you look at the demeanor of Elias Pettersson, 11.6 sheets a year, just stopped playing hockey after signing that contract. But I just haven't liked the body language of JT Miller lately. Like, he's sulking. Both guys are sulking, man. Like, I for the life of me would just love to know what the hell happened where both these guys just want to like end each other, because you're so right. Back in the day, and we hate to do this and age ourselves, but like, this would be settled with an easy fight outside the arena where it's like, hey, let's just get this out of the way and then we can move on with life. But
yeah.
Certainly not. I mean, you're not battling and playing COD and deciding, the right person in this.
I know, and I think it just comes down to communication and the lack of it nowadays, right? And I don't want to date myself, but it seems frustrating, especially JT Miller, would be that guy. But I also know that, like, over time, I've played with guys that bring that energy all the time. It starts to fall on deaf ears when things aren't going well. And it's like, when you aren't leading by example too, and you're telling everybody else to.
Fair enough, Huts. Excellent stuff. That's going to do it for another weekend edition of Leafs Morning Take. Any final words?
No, that's it, buddy. Have a great weekend, Vic. It's going to be a lot of fun. We'll miss you. Enjoy Africa. Enjoy the trip. And Nick, I will send my invoice in because it's the end of the month, baby.
Yeah, I sign off on those, and judging by your performance today, I will sign off on it. You were great. I won't lie, folks. I will be in a angry mood on Monday if the Leafs don't find a way to get at least a point in this game, man. To get to 4 in a row, and maybe it's the process how they get there, but like I like, put it this way. I don't want to enter the Four Nations break with this team playing piss poor and losing games left and right, because you just mentioned it. The Ottawa Senators, somehow, some way, like the Undertaker, dude, they're playing their 7th-string netminder. They're 4 points back of the Leafs. Boston's in the equation. Tampa, create that separation again. Let's go after that division. So we'll leave it at that. Leafs and Oilers coming up on Saturday. Thank you to everybody in the chat. You guys are phenomenal. Great words of wisdom as well for producer Vic. Congratulations to him. Early congratulations. Can't wait for the wedding coming up tomorrow night at the Leafs Nation 401. Hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button. We're passing the torch to producer Andy Zaid, going to join us starting next week. Mr. Squid Extraordinaire himself. Thank you to producer Vic once again. Gord Stellick for dropping by the show. Of course, for Carter Hutton, I'm Nick Alberga. We'll talk on Monday. Take care. Make sure to check out more of our content right here on the Leafs Nation YouTube page. We got long-form interviews. We got clips. We got epic rants by Jay Rosa. We simply have it all. And don't forget, you can find out much more at theleafsnation.com. Thanks so much for watching.